Welcome everyone to today's Title Topics webinar. These are ALTA's free presentations that we offer every month on issues important to title professionals. I'm Jeremy Yowie, ALTA's Vice President of Communications, and today we've got a fantastic webinar planned for today. While I'm sure everyone is working hard to prepare for the August 1st implementation of the integrated mortgage disclosures, it's also important to continue marketing your business and being out there and talking to the consumers and customers. And that's what today's speaker is going to focus on. Before starting, I just need to touch on a few housekeeping items. A copy of today's presentation was emailed earlier today to all registrants. If you didn't get it, please shoot me an email at jyowie@alta.org. I'll message everyone here on the webinar so you can see the email address, and I'll shoot you a PDF of the webinar of the presentation once we get done. All participant lines are muted for today's presentation. If at any time you have a question, please use the chat box function and we will address questions at the end of the webinar. As an added benefit, today's presentation is being recorded. After it's processed, the recording will be available on ALTA's website at alta.org/title topics. And again, that's alta.org/title topics. I need to thank Fidelity for sponsoring our Title Topics webinars this year. Their support allows us to continue providing these educational opportunities free of charge. And with that out of the way, let me introduce today's speaker. Joining us today, we have Cynthia McGovern, or Dr. Cindy as her clients call her. Cindy is the founder of Orange Leaf Consulting, which provides guidance on many areas to help title companies grow their business. Cindy has a master's degree in marketing communications and a doctorate in organizational communication. And today she's going to share how to turn some of these regulatory challenges into opportunities. Cindy, thank you for joining us, and I'll turn the discussion over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy, and I want to thank you for having me on today's webinar, and thank you to ALTA for continuing to educate our community. As Jeremy mentioned, we've got a lot of opportunity in front of us as an industry, and there are so many changes going on. We're in such a state of flux, but I actually think this is a great chance for us to be seen and be heard. So I want to talk today about growing your business by actually leveraging ALTA's best practices and all of the CFPB compliance changes that are coming along. As Jeremy mentioned, I'm with Orange Leaf Consulting, and we specialize in helping title companies to grow. So this is something that we've been working on with a lot of our clients for quite some time. So we're going to give you some of the secrets of the trade today to be able to position yourself for growth. So as we get started, I just want to mention this is really about positioning yourself to grow the business, not necessarily on the regulatory issues. We will touch on that, but this is truly about positioning for growth and positioning in market and how to tell your story. And in this increasingly competitive environment, we're getting more and more legislation. There's more on legal marketing practices, coming soon to a town near you. And good is not good enough anymore. It's really interesting to see the bar being continually raised in our industry. And we all talk about giving great service, but even that's not enough anymore. So what I want you to walk away from today's webinar with is some really clear strategies that you can go implement to help you look different to your customers. Differentiation isn't as easy as it used to be. I mean, we're being more and more commoditized. So I think this ALTA Best Practices and the CFPB compliance is actually your chance to truly grow. So we are looking at an opportunity. This is our chance. August is right around the corner. And the thing to think about with this is relationships and value is really where we get our business partnerships from. The relationship with our customers, and we've heard this 100 times, it's the relationship business. Yes, but it's the relationship with the perception of value. And the value is in the eye of the beholder, and it's up to us to tell that story. And it's not just with our traditional customers, the realtors, the lenders, the builders. It's also the consumer. And we've existed in secret way too long as an industry. I mean, if any of us sitting on an airplane try to tell somebody what we do for a living, we get that blank stare when you say title insurance. And then they always say, oh, like when you buy a car. So nobody quite understands what we do. Well, this is an opportunity for us as an industry to even say, hey guys, we've been here all along, we're not going anywhere, and this is super important to you. So I think this is really a great chance. And, you know, along with this too, there's a new sheriff in town. It's the CFPB. It's truly about protecting the consumer by carrying out the federal consumer financial laws. And it's really looking at going into everybody's house and saying, okay, Bob on Main Street, you're protected. Sally on Street A, you're protected. And it's really an opportunity for us to look at this and say, guys, we've been doing this all along. This is our standard practice as an industry, and we want to make sure you guys understand what we're doing as a title company, as an agency, to truly make sure that you and your customers are protected. So it really starts with who is in your company today. And one thing that we've been working on with a lot of our clients is the frontline employees first, the folks that are absolutely talking to your customers and the consumer on a daily basis. Have you done the education? Have you trained them on what's really going on? And have you, as a company, decided how you're going to position yourself? You guys have heard me talk before about differentiating yourself from the competition and how you tell that story and making it sort of your chorus, if you will. It's the song you want them to sing about you. Well, this is an opportunity to do that as well. It's that best practices is the way that we do business, and this is why it should be important to you. And organizing how you're going to communicate what you're doing to be prepared. The question I get around this is, well, gosh, Cindy, we still don't know what all the pieces are going to be. That is true. And we may not know until August 1, quite frankly, depending on the lenders. So the thing to think about is getting in dialogue today with your current staff and your current customers and even potential customers to really talk about it. And then the question I would pose is, can your employees who are talking to your clients on a daily basis be able to discuss with them what the basic changes are and why they should care? And if you can't answer a resounding yes to that question, we've got work to do, and we've got to do it now. I've been talking about this for about 18 months. ALTA's been talking about this for longer than that. But one of the things we have to think about is we're going into the busy season in our industry, and August is going to be here in literally the blink of an eye. So don't wait. Now is the time to be starting this internally. Now is the time to be having this dialogue with your own staff so that they're ready. It also presents a unique opportunity because you're going to have more people you're talking to on a daily basis. Orders go up, more people we get to talk to. And there are multiple sides to each deal. There's the directing agent, the non-directing agent, the lender. We've got 2 realtors, and we've got a couple consumers. So there's great opportunity. And it's looking at what that opportunity is and taking advantage of it. So I want you to think about market strategy. How are you going to take this message to the market? And what are you going to talk about when you get in front of them? Education through presentations is key, and a lot of our customers have actually been doing this for quite a while, getting folks together in a room, getting the realtors together in a room, showing them the new disclosure form. And again, some folks think this is like the Y2K of title insurance. They know that there's a change, but it's kind of like, is it really going to affect me? Yes, it is. And the challenge is, I'm not convinced everybody else in our tertiary industry with the lenders and the realtors is doing a really good job of explaining this to them. And I'll give you a quick story. I was talking with a realtor literally last week here in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and I said, hey, what are you guys doing internally to talk about this? And he goes, oh, you know, they mentioned it, but I don't really think it's going to be a big deal. Well, of course, I gasped because we know it's a big deal. It's going to change everything about the way they operate. It's going to change the way they get paid, change when it closes. There's all kinds of things. So we can't assume that all parties are doing their job to educate. So again, I think this is an opportunity for us as an industry to get in front of it and to truly educate. So create some presentations. There's a lot of information out there. ALTA's got a lot of information, title news and things like that. Work with your underwriters. Lots and lots of info. Boil it down to the basic bullet points and get out there and start talking about it. Drip campaigns and social media is another phenomenal way to get in front of your customers. A lot of our clients in the title space have really been using social media more and more to connect with customers and potential customers, including consumers. This is a great place to start the conversation. Small chunks of information, snippets here and there to get the message out of what's going to be happening. And then finally, interviews and needs assessments. Get out in the market and start talking to your customers and find out what it is they know and what they don't know, more importantly, so that we can come back and actually create that strategy and what they're going to need to know so we can educate them. So looking at this is about focusing on the right thing. Think not about what you're doing to be compliant, but think about how what you're doing is benefiting your client and the consumer, the insured. So one of the things in our title industry is, we try to explain to people what we do and we're the neutral third party and all of this. Nobody quite gets that. They think of title insurance companies as kind of like ATMs. The order goes in and money comes out and everybody's happy. And we have to think about how what we're doing is actually going to benefit all of the parties involved. And like I said, it's really about positioning. Everything is about positioning what we do for clients and consumers and why they care. NPI is the easiest one of these to talk about because everybody understands it. Everybody knows NPI is a huge deal. If you ask any of your customers, they probably know somebody that was affected by the Target or the Home Depot deal a couple years ago. Everybody knows somebody that's been a victim of identity theft or a breach. So if you start just talking about that and talking about all of the strides that we're making as an industry to protect that information. And again, remember the kind of information we have. I mean, we've got Social Security numbers, we've got bank info, we've got like everything but their firstborn. So we have to educate them on why they need to be using encrypted emails and why they have to go through these hoops to get the information. But again, it's about what it does for their customer. So the simplification of forms, again, makes it easier for everybody. Are they a little more confusing for some? In the beginning, but this is an easy change. The key is to make sure our realtors know how this is going to impact them. And I'll be honest with you, most of the folks that we've been talking to, the realtor space, they haven't been having this conversation yet. So they're not paying close enough attention. So you have a really great opportunity as a title insurance company in your market to be that resource, to be that expert and say, hey guys, this is actually going to affect you and here's how it's going to affect you, and start that conversation. They don't even understand how it's going to affect them though. So it's talking about some of these bullet points. Transactions may take longer. That's the simplest one, right? And we all have the story of the realtor who's like screaming because the docs came to you 30 minutes ago and they want to close right now, and there's a moving van in the parking lot. The problem is we have to educate them ahead of time because, again, like has happened historically, we're going to end up getting blamed. So certain changes at the last minute might actually require that the close dates are shifting too, and that may put the loan lock at risk. So they need to understand how that's going to affect them and, oh, by the way, their customer. Because if the loan lock is at risk, then it, affects all kinds of things. And then this, quote, optional owner's policy. And, oh, my gosh, this is the biggest one for us, I think, as an industry. That word optional is dangerous. It's terrifying, quite frankly. But you throw that word in front of something and people all of a sudden believe that, oh, it's not necessary. Well, everybody on this call today knows that it is necessary. This is really their chance. It's a one-time deal to protect what they've got. But again, it's about educating not just the realtor, but the consumer on what this actually does for them. So with your realtor population, I think you start with questions. I think you do an interview, and you could put a few of them together in a room, kind of a focus group, and just start with open-ended questions. Tell me what you know about the changes that are coming in August. What have you been hearing about TILA and the CFPB and all of these other changes? What do you know about the new closing disclosure form? And getting them talking about it. Again, you get to be the expert in the front of the room. We may or may not have answers to some of their questions, but at least we get them in the room and we say, hey guys, we're working on this and we're trying to find answers to the questions that you have. From a sales standpoint, put a star next to this, because this is an opportunity for you for both existing and new targets. This is a chance to get the folks that you haven't had an opportunity to work with in your office, in your conference room, for a captive audience conversation for 30 minutes to an hour to talk about changes to their business. This allows you to show your prowess. This is where you get to be the expert. You get to stand there. And educating is really going to create perceived value almost immediately. It truly is saying, hey guys, this was a great use of my time. I'm going to sit here. Don't forget to ask for orders or more orders. when you're actually having this dialogue. Quick story, we have a client that was actually doing a focus group like this, and they invited both current clients as well as prospects to go and sit in the room. And when you invite them in, absolutely important, get everybody there, and they started going through questions. I would encourage you to sit with your staff and create lists of questions or even perhaps bullet points that you can cover when you're sitting down with all of these realtors. And then what we did from there is make sure that everybody had a plan of attack in the room. So there were about 3 to 4 people, there's one person popping in and out, from the title agency in the room. There were 2 people that were doing sort of the main conversation. One person was taking notes. The other person was popping in and out. But this is a sales conversation. This is an opportunity for you to sit down and talk to them about what's going on, what the changes are, what the questions are that they have, go back and find answers, and then make sure your staff is following up with them. Again, opportunity to grow your business. If you have dedicated salespeople, have them in the room, because this is an opportunity for them to schedule appointments with those prospects and clients to follow up on this later and be able to continue to ask for orders. So don't be afraid of this. A couple of questions that you can start with is, how are you preparing for the upcoming implementation of the new CFPB requirements? Again, this may be scary to them because they haven't started thinking about it or they haven't started talking about it. What information have you received so far that's related to the CFPB that impacts real estate professionals? We cannot assume that their broker is passing this information off. Or worse yet, the information is going out there, but nobody's reading it. That's the other thing that we're hearing from our title agent clients, is that they're talking to realtors and emails are being sent to them, but think about how many emails we get on a daily basis. If we get 14 emails that all say something about CFPB, you might glance at 1 or 2, but they're not sitting down and actually digesting the information. And then they're being bombarded by the lenders, all kinds of stuff. So this is a chance for you to sort of consolidate the information and get them focused on what's truly important and what's really going to actually affect them. And then I would ask, how have you considered the new, quote, optional language related to the owner's title policy is going to impact your conversations with your clients? Now, this is something to think about as a title professional. So do we want the realtor having this conversation with them, or do we want to have that conversation with them? And this is really your choice. And I heard a collective gasp across the nation when I said, do we want the realtors to do it? But it is partially about the positioning. It's about making sure they understand they need to drive the consumer to us to talk about it. They need to drive their clients to us to ask those questions. But once again, if that word optional is on there, they don't see it as a necessary. So I think we need to talk to them about positioning us as the expert and even saying, hey, you know what, here's what it's going to say. It's going to have this little optional piece. It's really not. And here are the reasons why it's not. And here's what it does for you, Mr. or Ms. Realtor. Because again, realtors, a lot of markets, they're price sensitive, even if they're not paying for it. They get freaked out. So the key is to have a conversation with them about why it makes them look good, why it makes them look like the educated realtor versus every other realtor in town that doesn't know anything about this. They really do need that owner's policy. But unless we have the consumer's realtor starting the conversation and at least introducing the topic for us, by the time it gets to us, it's just a checkbox, and that's really, really dangerous. So I think we want to make sure that we get them started with the conversation. So another piece of what I would encourage you guys to do as a team is when you bring everybody together in your own office, ask questions they have first. So first things first, staff meeting. When you get off of this call, put it on the calendar, get your entire staff in a room and start talking about what they know and what they don't know. You lean on ALTA, you lean on your underwriters to get the information about the changes that are coming. Yes, it's still changing. No, things aren't absolutely set in stone yet. And yes, there are differences between the regulations and then some state regulations. But again, it's starting the dialogue. You don't want your staff to be caught off guard when they're talking to one of their realtors or lenders or a consumer about some of the changes that are going. The other challenge is the internet. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of information out there, but there's also misinformation. So we want to control the message that's going out. So talk with your internal staff. Second step, create those focus groups. I would actually start with the lenders though. We're talking about realtors because those traditionally are the ones that are driving the business to us, but I would actually take a step back and talk to your lenders first. The big guys are absolutely having these conversations. The big guys are sending out information. Again, we hope folks are reading it. But I would concentrate on the regionals. I would concentrate on your local banks, the ones that may or may not be getting this kind of information. And you, again, get to position yourself as the expert to give that message to them. It starts with questions, just like the realtor session. Starts with the questions about what have you heard? What are you seeing? What questions do you have? Have you thought about how it's going to impact you? Have you thought about how you're going to have this conversation with your own customers, with refis, and all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on? They talk to consumers too. And again, even if it's not about title insurance per se, there are changes. People watch the news, and the consumers are going to have questions. So again, it's our responsibility as an industry, I feel, that we take that message to market. Once you bring those lenders in, that's also a great opportunity to start positioning yourself for the challenges that are going to come from them. You know, they're going to each have different regulations that we have to follow, different processes and procedures. So it's a great conversation starter. Once again, it is also a sales opportunity. You know, this is a conversation about positioning yourself for growth. So looking at when you have those lenders in the door, how do you turn that into business? And a lot of it is about that follow-up. Same thing that you would do with the realtors. Position yourself as the expert. We are going to be with you every step of the way. Our goal is to make sure we don't skip a beat in working with you with all of these changes and that we are staying in compliance. And then third, making sure your staff is continuing to follow up. You've got a captive audience when you have these folks in your conference room, but the thing is, we've got to follow up to make it turn into actual business. So start with the lenders, then move to the realtors, have that same dialogue. And then we convert it to business, and that's really where it comes from, is how do you actually get it linked together so we can ask. Leverage the conversation and keep the conversation going. You guys have probably heard me talk about a consultative sales approach, which is really based on assessing the needs and then positioning whatever you have as the solution. Well, we do that all day long, but the word service scares me, and I'll tell you why. If we talk about servicing customers, that's in the eye of the beholder, just like value. Value is perceived by each person individually. So what we have to do as an industry is define what that service is that we're providing. And it's not just enough to talk about the CFPB and best practices that's going on. It's positioning it on how it's going to benefit them. So let me give you a quick example. If you're a title agency in, wherever, Florida, and you're talking to your lenders and you position this and you get them all in for a focus group. You talk about it, you answer the questions, you've got your staff following up with them on a consistent basis. Then we move to the realtor population. With the realtor population, you do the same thing. You bring them in, you ask questions, you position yourself as an expert, send everybody back home, and we continue to follow up. Now we've got to actually leverage this for business for ourselves. So when you're following up, think about how you can ask for business. And a lot of title agencies that we work with struggle with actually asking. And I know that sounds silly because we think if we service them, the business will come. Well, service is the expectation. If we don't service the client, we're not going to be in business. So we really have to think about defining what service we provide and then asking for what we want. So for instance, if you have great turn times and you are proactive in your communication, then I would define that when you're talking to these folks. When they're in your room and you're sitting in your conference room and you're talking about CFPB and best practices, drop some breadcrumbs about the kind of service that you deliver, the kind of service that you can offer. Again, not saying the S word. If I could, I'd make T-shirts that said service like a big X through it, because we need to be careful about that word as an industry. So think about how you can actually create the conversation so you can follow up. So if we talk about great turn times, fantastic. Great turn times, we're going to give it a shot. We would love the opportunity to work on your next deal. Now, hear what I did there. I didn't say, love to see you, love to work with you. I wasn't soft about it. I said, we'd love to work on your next deal. Before they leave your conference room, ask them for the opportunity to work with them. Then when you're following up, I'd put them on sort of a drip campaign. If you're using social media to stay in front of them, that's fantastic. But sometimes we forget to follow up. So put a message in your Outlook calendar, or if you're using a CRM, to actually have a little reminder that says, okay, we did our focus group 2 weeks ago. time to check in with everybody. Time to call those lenders, time to call those realtors, see how they're doing, and oh, by the way, ask for business. You might have to teach your entire staff how to do this. Now, I heard a collective gasp across the nation on this one too, because I know what's going to happen when you talk to your processors, escrow officers, and closers, and they're going to go, we're not salespeople. I get it. We're not salespeople, but we are in the business of servicing folks, which really is sales. If we're in professional services, that is sales. We're trying to be nice to them so they come back. So you may actually need to make this part of that internal dialogue, not just about CFPB, not just about best practices, not just about regulatory changes, but also leveraging this as a sales conversation. And this is where we come in. This is where we typically end up helping our clients, because they know about all the regulatory stuff, but they don't know how to position it. So something that you can talk to your own staff about with regards to this is help everybody to find their own words. What I mean by that is don't give them a script. Don't say these 5 things, because then it's going to sound like a script. When we work with a client, we don't actually use scripts at all, because I want folks to figure out what feels natural for them to ask for the business, what feels natural for them to ask, you know, hey, could you introduce me to this particular agent in your office so we could have this conversation with him as well. So getting them practicing that is key. Now, a lot of folks on this call probably don't have a dedicated sales manager. So if you're running the agency, if you're the manager of the branch or you're the manager of your office, the responsibility lies with you. So I would absolutely take advantage of the opportunity that we have. Again, there's 5, 6 sides to every single deal that's coming through, and we're going into the busy season. So this is an unbelievable opportunity to steal market share from your competition. Yes, I said it. Steal market share. So let me give you another example. With the realtor population, let's talk about how you're positioning CFPB and best practices. Everything is amazingly compliant. You're doing this as if you've done it your entire career, and everybody's super happy. Then we start having that dialogue about how we're servicing you and how we're protecting your customer and how we're taking care of you with proactive communication, making sure you have all of the answers so that you can tell your consumers what's going on during the title process. Because again, nobody understands what we do. So then you get to that opportunity where you get to ask for business from your directing customer. But what about that non-directing agent? What about that agent that we haven't had the opportunity to work with yet? What about the agent who ignores us? And guys, think about it this way. That non-directing agent is in our house. We've opened the front door, but so often we open the back door and let them just walk right out because we think, oh, you know, that's so-and-so's customer. Absolutely not. Do not assume that brand X down the street is having this kind of dialogue. Do not assume that brand X is teaching them about the changes to the industry and how it's going to impact their business and, oh, by the way, their wallet. So that's a great opportunity to steal. And unless we teach our staff how to have this conversation and to invite that non-directing agent into the dialogue, we lose the opportunity. If you think about your average processor today and how many customers they talk to on a daily basis, let's say on average, conservatively, they have 7 customers that they talk to on a daily basis. Times that by 3, because there's 7 lenders. There's 7 non-directing agents. That's 21 opportunities in one day with one processor to educate, to let them know what we're doing as an industry, to position ourselves as the experts and, you know, fluff those feathers. I mean, let's be a peacock here. Let's show them that we're good at what we do and we know what we're talking about. And oh, by the way, ask for business. But if we don't teach our internal staff how to do this, it's never going to happen. It's going to be business left on the table. Quick story. We have a client that we were working with. We're done now. We only worked with them for 90 days and just did some coaching. But in the coaching, we were talking about how to tell their story of the changes. They are now fully compliant. They've done all their audits. Everybody's super happy. Everybody's working as if it's been the status quo since day one. Really, really powerful conversation. We worked with the branch manager only, just the managers, to teach them how to have this dialogue with their own staff. They started talking with lenders. They started talking with realtors. But again, we started with the internal staff, making sure they understood what was going on. In their second month of working with us, a 3-person office brought in 14 new customers, 14 new customers in one of their 3-person offices. The other ones had way more than that. But I just want to show you as an example how much business you can bring in simply by leveraging what we're already doing. This is such an amazing opportunity for us as an industry, but it's on the table for us to take. Another office. It's a 7-person office, title agency. Again, worked only with the manager, did not talk to the staff at all. Coached the manager with about 6 months. We were helping them to get structured and, set goals, things like that. And then during this time, they were working on their compliance, getting everything together, best practices, all yada, yada, yada. Everybody gets back together. We're talking with the manager, and I said, you got to go tell the story. You've got to get out to the market and start telling folks. In their second month, they actually brought in 22 new clients. New client was defined by somebody who hadn't directed business in 6 months or more. That's pretty amazing. And in their third month, they brought in another 20. So this is all opportunities for us to grow. So if a small office can do this, think about your own agency. Think about how many processors, escrow officers, closers you have that have that same exact opportunity. And most of these actually came from that non-directing agent side. Most of these came from the folks that we talk to every day that we just haven't really thought about positioning ourselves as experts and asking for the business. But I will promise you, the asking for the business part is the part that's going to be left out every single time. So now that you know how to have that conversation internally, how to have the conversation with your lenders, and how to have the conversation with your realtors, we can't forget about the insured themselves. And this is a big opportunity for us, again, as an industry. Communicate early and often with the home buyer. It's really kind of scary that nobody knows what we do, yet they all have title insurance, and nobody really understands why it's so important. I mean, everybody's heard the story of how Abe Lincoln lost his house twice and all that. We have to be telling these kinds of stories. We have to be getting in front of the insured to let them know why this is a benefit to them. And talk about the benefits to them particularly, not about what we do, not about how we process and we're the neutral third party in the transaction. They don't really understand, nor do they quite care about it. Talk about the benefit to them. What does it do for me? What does it do for me owning my home, and why is this so crucial? And again, it only matters when there's a claim, right? It's like any other kind of insurance. Nobody cares unless there's a claim. But getting them understanding. And ALTA's got a lot of information about this, by the way. They've been doing focus groups, and there's a lot of information out there that they've gleaned that homeowners actually want this information. They want to know what's going on with us, why us. And again, the CFPB, all over the news, any news channel, any night, is talking about all of the changes here. But again, we can't assume they're getting the right information. We can't assume that they're getting all the pieces they need. The other thing about the insured is monitor and follow up on any of the complaints that you're getting too. I mean, you guys have complaint logs now with best practices, but making sure that they're actually understanding, because we live in the Twitter universe now, and rather than telling 1 to 2 to 5 people how ticked off they are at brand X, they're going to go to Yelp. They're going to go to Facebook. They're going to start tweeting about it. So we want to make sure that we're controlling the message for all the different populations out there, that we're controlling the message. And again, go to ALTA, go to your underwriters to get the information that you can trickle out to these folks. But we've got to take that ownership of the message. It is absolutely vital. Other professionals are not necessarily understanding that we have to do this. They don't really take any value in it. And the other piece of this is that's really kind of scary is they're waiting. Everybody's waiting until August. You can't wait. And again, as a business development opportunity, this is your best chance. As a business development opportunity, you can steal market share right now during the busy season. Now, the pushback that I always get from folks when I say that is during the busy season, they go, but our people are just barely, hanging on. They haven't had lunch in, 5 days. They haven't had a hot cup of coffee in 2 weeks. I get it. But this is the hey, by the way conversation. It takes 7 seconds to ask for business on the phone call. It takes 7 seconds to say, hey, would you like to come and sit in on one of our focus groups? Hey, would you like to come in and talk with us about all the changes to the industry? 7 seconds. You can fit 7 seconds into your day. It's a great opportunity. With the owner's title insurance, the key is be careful about the optional language. And again, it's making sure they understand that it's optional, but only sort of. And so when you're talking with the insured, it's about helping them to own what it really means to them, what the true message is, why they should care, and getting it out in front of them. So like we talked about, there's a ton of information out there, but it is critical to educate the consumers about title insurance. They don't know what we do. There's a lot of confusion, like we said. Early education actually has a quantifiable impact, like we talked about with our clients that have been going out there and having these conversations. That is money in the door. That is revenue in your wallet. And homebuyers want information about title insurance earlier in the process. So the other thing I would encourage you to do is think about how you're actually getting them information about it, because again, typically we have sort of marketed to our realtors, we've marketed to lenders and builders, but we haven't necessarily gone to the consumer. So how do we get that message out to the consumer? And maybe that is where you're doing drip campaigns and trickling out to these folks. And then the key positive messages include protect your financial investment for as long as you own your home for a one-time fee. It's not like insurance they pay every month or every year. It's once. And it is the most significant investment for most people in their life. And again, we cannot assume that their realtor is having this conversation. So now that we've gone through how to have the conversations and what to do, you guys who know me know that I always give homework. So we've got a to-do list. We've got to go and actually take action today. So first things first, and Jeremy is going to send you the slides for this, so you'll have this checklist. Inform. Inform your internal team on what they need to know. Answer all of their questions first. We do not want them to be caught off guard on the phone or when they're talking to somebody at the closing table. Engage. Get other folks involved. Delegate and assign tasks out. Get your processing teams to start talking about this and collecting the questions that they're getting, collecting the questions that are coming from the market, and then educate and train. Tell them how to do it and tell them what to communicate to clients. I had a client that asked about a talk track. Like, could we give them a talk track, some bullet points to cover? You certainly could create that. But again, the part that's always missing when we go into an organization is nobody's ever helped them to practice the talk track. Nobody's helped them to actually sit down and have the dialogue with them so that they can have that give and take. Reading bullet points on a piece of paper and actually having the conversation over the phone or at a closing table are very different. So spend the time doing the internal training, and again, do it now. It's only going to get busier when we get into June and July. So do the conversations now internally. And then plan and strategize for growth. And what I would say in this step is think about the people you want business from. Again, this is a great opportunity to steal market share. So make a list of all your current clients that need to know this information. And then make a list of the people you want business from. And think about how you can get them to come in. I would also engage your internal staff in this conversation. Ask them the non-directing agents that have been coming through that seem to be, not crazy. And let's go after them. Let's ask them for information that they need to know. What are their questions, and see if we can answer them. But getting all hands on deck is really crucial at this point in time. We do not want any of our internal staff to be caught without an answer, and we want to be positioning ourselves as the market leader in your market. I had a question last week from one of our clients who said, but the banks are starting to have these conversations already. The banks are starting to position and send out information. Great. That's fine. But again, do not assume that they're sending the information in a way that benefits the customer. I've actually gotten a lot of those emails, and they're very much informative. They're bullet points that say, this is changing, this is changing, this is changing, and this is changing. But if I'm reading that as a real estate agent, or as the insured, I don't necessarily understand what that means to me, and I don't understand how it's going to impact my business. So that's where our message comes in, is the impact to the insured, the impact to the realtor, and how it's going to impact how they work. I mean, there's no more of this like last-minute stuff. So again, think about who you want business from, create the list, and start making the phone calls. If you have a dedicated sales team, they need to be involved in this, obviously. But again, this is an opportunity for them to prospect. This is the opportunity for them to be calling on the people that haven't sent us business yet and saying, hey, by the way, we want to help you continue to grow your business by helping you to understand the changes that are coming so that you can keep your clients informed. And oh, by the way, this is our best practices that we do, and it helps you in this way. So again, get everybody involved. And then last but certainly not least is the execution of it. We've got to make sure that we're getting out there, implementing, tracking, analyzing, adjusting, and then continuing the conversation. Tracking this is one of the things that most people leave out. When they're doing any kind of a sales strategy or any kind of marketing, we kind of throw it out there and we go back to work. And the reason that we track it, obviously, is we want you to see your ROI. Look at what you're going to get from this. Look at the business that's going to come in. If you don't have a CRM, then use that target list that you've created and see if your wallet share from current clients goes up from this. See if you do get some of those non-directing agents or prospects to start using you. But again, they're going to be nervous come August. And if we can position ourselves as the forefront, we are the industry that is taking this message to market, to the realtors, and more importantly to the consumers, and showing the realtors that we're partnering with them to help them look good to their clients, and we're educating their clients with them. This is an opportunity for us to finally be heard. We have existed in quiet for way too long as an industry, so this is our chance to see and be seen and to truly engage the customers, the clients, the insured in the conversation. So I want to open it to questions. I hope I haven't gone over too much in time. So Jeremy, do we have some questions in the chat box?
Hey, Cindy. Yeah, good pace. We do have some time. Again, as a reminder, if you have any questions, send the questions via the chat box, and we will fire them over to Cindy. Cindy, as people are kind of, thinking what they might want to submit, can you just maybe touch on what a drip campaign is?
Yes. So a drip campaign is kind of what it sounds like. You drip, drip, drip on them. And this is really a marketing strategy. There is a difference between marketing and sales. Marketing is brand awareness. Sales is the relationship building aspect. So the drip campaign is really where you can send emails every couple of weeks or even once a month, or you send a white paper or a newsletter, or you can even do a drip campaign through your social media. It's giving those snippets of information on a fairly consistent basis to your target market, customers, potential customers, and the consumers, and letting them have this information. One thing I will say about drip campaigns that I've noticed as of late, as I read more and more about the market and how we're changing, we live in a 140-character world. It really is about short snippets. So be careful to send out, tons of information to folks and giving them 4 and 5 pages to read. They're not going to read it. And if we're being honest, your realtors are going to read like whatever fits on their phone screen, and then they're going to delete it. So making sure we're giving very clear and concise messages. So one thing I often will ask our clients to do if they are doing a drip campaign, section it out. Make it part 1 of 3 or part 1 of 5 and say, 5 steps. Step 1 is this. 2 days later, step 2 is this, or 3 days later, whatever. So it's just dripping on them to keep in front of them. Make sure your brand is in that message as well. Your logo is on the email, all of those easy things that we sometimes forget even. And then any hashtags that you're using as well. And links to other information, links to your website, links to other posts that you've done, things of that nature as well. So again, drip campaigns are fantastic. If you don't have a marketing drip campaign set up today, think about it in the simplest form. Who do I want to be in front of? How often do I want to touch them? And what's the message I want them to have? So who do I want to be in front of? How often do I want to touch them? And what's the message I want them to have? You want to be in front of your prospects and clients. You want to touch them at least a couple times a month, probably, maybe once a month at a bare minimum. And you want the message to be the changes that are coming and why it's important to them. Make it about them. If it's about who you are and what you do and that you give great, quote, service, they're going to delete it. It needs to be about why they should care about the changes that are coming and positioning you as the expert. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that explanation. I'm sure that was on the minds of a lot of people. So you touched on, the 140 character, the tweets, Twitter. So, how would a title agent, utilize or show off that their implementation of best practices? So, what are you seeing out there? Are people, putting it on Facebook, tweeting, say, we'll protect your, your personal information, and then are they promoting it on their website, or what are you seeing, or what would be your recommendation on how they would promote it?
Great question. I'm actually seeing a lot of it coming through the website. which is fine, but the challenge with that is it's a passive approach because somebody has to go to your website to get that information. So they'll have sort of a running blog or something on, the bottom right-hand corner. What I would say is get it out there. So that's that drip campaign, pushing it out to them. So posting on LinkedIn, posting on Facebook, posting on Twitter, you can actually preload them in Hootsuite and all those wonderful things so that it blasts to all of them at the same time, but it's getting that message to them in a very short way. We have a client that actually did this really, really well, and they blast to all three at the same time. And what they did was they created sort of monthly conversations, and it was a question and answer, and that's it. It was, realtor asked us this, here's what we say. Lender asked us this, here's what we say. Home buyer asked us this is what we say. So it was literally just a Q&A. Twitter, it had to be really, really short, so it was typically a mini URL. But the key is keeping it very short. If you look at your phone and you look at how many characters can fit on one screen of your phone, that's about how long it should be. And I know that's scary because it's not a whole lot of room, but getting that message out that way. And I thought that was really creative. It was like a Q&A. And it also created other dialogue. So on their Facebook page and on their LinkedIn page, people actually started commenting. And that's where they were getting some of the other questions as well. They're getting other questions from this because it was sparking conversation. That helped to do two things. It positioned them as an expert because people were starting to come to them with questions. And secondly, it was a great opportunity to continue to be in front of their customers. So two birds with one stone. It was a really, really great idea. And we can't take credit for that. They did that. It was fantastic.
And the drip effect is very impactful. We see it at ALTA, just because I might send out a headline once doesn't mean everyone in the world's seen it. People are busy, they're closing deals, so you need to be repetitive and you need to get that message out there many formats and many times.
Absolutely, and especially when you're sending to the consumer, because remember how much information the consumer is getting on a daily basis. I mean, any of us go to our mailbox and there's like a gazillion junk mail in it, and the same thing happens with our email inboxes. So we want to be really clear about the message, and it is that repetition. It's making sure that they understand it. And if you look at like marketing research, it says anywhere between 6 to 8 touches before the message sinks in. So, you have to see the new Tide commercial 6 to 8 times before you're going to recognize, oh, there's a new Tide on the market. So don't be afraid to sort of cyber stalk them a little bit. And a lot of folks tend to give up after 3 times. It's sort of the baseball analogy, 3 strikes and you're out. Don't be afraid. Keep the message going. Keep it out there. But if you can get creative about the way you're delivering the message is really powerful. And that actually brought up another client that's doing video messaging, which was really fun. And we're seeing more and more of this in our industry. It's still fairly new to the title space, but a lot of industries are doing this. And you can create little snippet videos that you just email to someone and you can post them as well. But it's really powerful because then it's a person. It's a 2-minute video that just says, hey, here's what we're talking about today. We have another client that does this. They actually have a channel on YouTube, and theirs are about 5-minute little conversations, and they bring in guests, and they answer questions. But it's a really nice, more interactive and personal way to do this. So think about ways that you can even do that with the consumer themselves. That's maybe a little bit more engaging than just sending an email from some random title company that they don't really remember. So get them engaged in that dialogue. The video is really fun.
Yeah, you definitely want, if you can get personal and engage them, that's effective. There was a study last year on human attention span, and it concluded that the average attention span of a human is now, I believe it was 8 seconds, and that is now a second shorter than a goldfish. So.
That's actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, so you don't have much time.
No, we don't. Well, and you know what? That's where I'm talking about the Twitterverse that we live in. We really do need to be careful about this. And so, looking at the emails that even the banks are sending out, they're 2 and 3 screens long, and those are things we need to know. But we can't send that out to our own market. We can't send that to the realtors, and we can't send that to the consumers. We need to boil it down to why that matters to them. Send it out in snippets so that they understand that we're on their side. We're protecting them. That's our job as an industry, is to protect them. But we need to kind of craft that message. And I think we need to start that now. I think we have a great opportunity in front of us as an industry to start that conversation. And I think it's our responsibility more than anything.
Here's a question from Sue, and it's about the use of optional for owner's title insurance. And
Mm-hmm.
her question was, why did the CFPB describe owner's policy this way? And I can quickly, she's just looking for a short answer. I'll answer that. And then maybe, Cindy, if you can explain, though, again, how this is an opportunity to explain the benefits of the policy for the consumer.
Sure.
But essentially, the CFPB staff has said it's the industry's responsibility to market the product. Simple as that. That I don't remember where it was a public speaking engagement, and they pretty much put the onus on the industry to sell the product. And Cindy, now, if you, again, it really ties in to the essence of what you said. This is it's an owner's policy. It's a consumer product.
It's for the consumer, and I think that just nailed it. I mean, they basically just told us our job is to sell it, that they're not going to require it. It's our job to position it as important. And so, Sue, I think this is a great question, and it's one of those things where we have to realize as an industry, our job is sales. Our job is to get out there and have this conversation, but people are only going to pay for something that they see a value in, and unless we educate them and unless we have that dialogue, they're not going to see the value in it. And so this, again, is the opportunity for us as an industry to show why we even exist and why it's important to them and why they should care and how we can help them. So I think that, as you guys start having conversation as your title company internally, think about you as consumers. I mean, let's face it, we're homeowners, right? So how do we feel about that, and where would we expect to get our information, and what would be most important to us to understand in this, quote, optional environment now? And I think if we put ourselves in the consumer shoes, which we are, that's going to really help you to cross that message.
Okay. And here's an interesting question from Deborah, and I'm guessing she's an attorney, and I don't know what the regulations are for attorneys to market business, but she says they have restrictions on face-to-face solicitation. Any suggestions on maybe any clients that you've worked with that are law firms?
So this is where it gets a little bit squirrely, because every place is a little bit different and the regulations are a little bit different. So make sure you know your regulatory constraints wherever you are. And then I would look at, if you can't do face-to-face, can you have conference calls? Can you do WebEx? How else can you get the information out there? That video chat is a really great way too. So what are the opportunities that you have in front of you? I mean, the world is very small now if we really think about it. I mean, you guys remember 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon from like 15 years ago. Well, if you can get to Kevin Bacon in 6 degrees, you can get to your consumer in 3. So looking at how you get in front of those in more creative ways. So if it's, not face-to-face, there is the interweb.
Any advice on the people on the call? Say, they want to reach out to the consumer, but they're getting pushback from the realtor who traditionally likes to be the face of the transaction. What should a title agent do in this situation?
That's a great question, and that's why you start with the realtor. That's why we have to start with the real estate agent and get them to understand why this is important to them. And quite frankly, in that dialogue, I think we can educate them enough to go, you don't want to do this, let us do this. You don't want to have this conversation. And I think it's very true, and that's what we've seen with a lot of our customers, is once they've started to get this out to market, the realtor goes, oh my God, I don't want to have that conversation. You guys go do it. And they'll send them to us, which is fantastic because we can control the message a little bit better. But it's about helping them to understand why this benefits them and how it benefits them and what we're doing. So just as we said with like NPI and protecting the information, and this is making you look good, Mr. or Ms. Realtor, because we're actually taking the strides to protect your customers' information. And this is just standard operating procedures for us. And the same thing with the owner's policies and having that dialogue is, look, we're just trying to help you look good to your customer. What would happen if they didn't have this and something did occur? That's going to come back on you. And so it's getting them to realize this is a better way to, quote, use that service word, to service their consumer, and that we're dedicated to being a part of their team. And I think that's the message we have to really be careful about crafting, is teaching our staff how to have that conversation. It's not just about saying, hey, we're going to do this, and, here's 4 bullet points. but helping every person define their words so that they can have that dialogue with the realtor and they can start getting their trust in a slightly different way. Realtors freak out because they don't understand the process. And so that's why they get really concerned. We do a lot of market research of real estate agents because we work with title companies, so we feel like we have to know your customer. And they don't understand title. They spend like 5 minutes on it in real estate school, and nor do they want to know title insurance. So I think if we position it that, hey guys, this is just another thing that we're going to do to make you look good to your customer, and we got this, but we just need you to trust us, I think we're actually going to be great. But again, we have to tell that story as an industry. It's our responsibility to take that to market.
Yeah, great advice, Cindy. And you'll be seeing over the summer more material that ALTA members can use to share with their real estate agent clients that they can then share with the home buyer about the benefits of the owner's title insurance policy, and as well material that you can use to go direct to the consumer, because again, the real estate agent may not see the value of them doing it. And the focus groups we've held over the past year showed that that's kind of the sentiment they feel. It's not my job to explain title insurance. My job is to show the home buyer the homes and get the deal, usher it to the closing. So again, the onus is on the title agent to explain the value, how it benefits the homeowner.
And our research is saying the exact same thing, Jeremy. I mean, we're running into the exact same message. So I think it's really a really powerful thing for our industry to look at that. And again, just to underscore it, this is our opportunity. This is our chance to be heard as an industry and show them what we do and why it's important. And I think it's amazing.
Real quick, and maybe I missed this, but someone asked about a copy of the letter that you said lenders are sending out.
So it's not a copy of a letter. I'm seeing emails that are coming from lenders just talking about the changes. And they're long and they're involved. And so you want to be careful. Don't just be forwarding that. You need to boil it down so that your internal staff understands it, and then be able to take the message to your realtors and that kind of thing, because they're pretty scary. What's coming out, it's a lot of info.
Okay. All right. Don't have any other questions right now. I'm going to wrap up. If any pop in, I'll pitch it over to you, Cindy. But if anyone on the call is looking for information about the integrated disclosures, ALTA's website at alta.org/CFPB, all things integrated mortgage disclosures, TRID. If you're looking for information about best practices, it's alta.org/best practices. Again, any questions, pop them into the questions box. Roy has one problem with optional language in states like Maryland, where only a licensed settlement agent can discuss anything related to title insurance, where the issue arises. Sorry, I'm just reading it in lieu of time. Yep. Trying to boil it down. Where the issue arises when a loan officer from a bank who submits the closing disclosure form receives a call from the consumer wanting to discuss title insurance, and should the loan officer talk about or respond to any questions related to title insurance, then they would be violating a Maryland law.
And again, this is where we need to know regulations in your area. I mean, this is hugely important. We've got to make sure you know your local regulations, because it's different everywhere.
Yeah, my guess is, well, if the loan officer can't talk about title insurance, would they be able to refer the consumer to the title agent? Get it directly from the horse's mouth.
That's what I would say. I mean, and again, we've been told it's our responsibility to talk about it. I mean, that came from the message on high. So I think that's a huge opportunity. But again, unless we're having that conversation with the lenders, unless we're having that conversation with the realtors, they might not realize we are the resource for that we are the expert, and we can have that conversation, and we're going to make them look good. We're going to handle the message in a way that's going to be good for everybody.
Okay. All right. As a reminder, if you missed parts of today's webinar, if you think others in your office would benefit, recording of the presentation will be available either later this week, next week after we get it processed, and that will be at alta.org/title topics. Looking ahead, our next webinar in June, we're going to shift a little bit and discuss exit strategies and focus on how to prepare to sell a title company. And then in July, we plan to focus on the other side of the transaction and discuss how to evaluate a company when you're wanting to buy and think about growing your footprint. And then in August, we will turn back to the implementation of the disclosures. We plan to focus on issues that may come up at the closing table, as well as post-closing issues when handling transactions involving the closing disclosure. And real quickly, ALTA and the NBA are offering an additional TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure forum. The previous 5 forums are all sold out, so we formed another one that will be June 23rd in Denver. You can go to ALTA's website for more information. With that, that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Cindy, thank you again for joining us and sharing information on how title companies can leverage best practices, the disclosures, and differentiate themselves in the marketplace.
My pleasure. Everybody get out there and grow big.
All right.